Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around I'm going to time travel. Not literally, because if I could, there'd be a lot of things I'd do. First one would probably be the obvious things. Change the geopolitical landscape of 2025. Get all of the winning lotto numbers for the last 6 months and end up a billionaire, but not the bad kind. But most importantly, what I would do is hop back to the 1960s and 1970s in Sydney, where I grew up, and go to the cinema. The flea pits were wonderful. They were grandiose places. They were cheap. The food was cheap. And there were some pretty good movies on. But it's not a trivial task because Australian currency changed a lot between the 1960s and now. On the 14th of February 1966, we got decimal currency. Instead of pounds, shillings and pence,
in come the dollars and in come the cents to replace the pounds and the shillings and the pence.
So anytime I had to go back before the 14th of February, I'd have to find old Australian money. And even if I did, the money that was brought in the 14th of February 1966 looks nothing like the plastic banknotes we have now. So I'd have to make 4 or 5 stops on my way back through time in order to change the money over, and it'd be a major pain in the ass. So I worked out a way around that. Here's my genius idea for getting 1960s money if you time travel. And please use it if you do. And then send me something nice. I go on AliExpress and get a shit ton of solar-powered pocket calculators. They're probably about $3 each. And then I take them back and sell them to some guy who ran a market stall at Paddy's Market in Sydney in 1965. And having flog off these digital calculators because they would have been very useful at the time and give me a lot of money. Just enough. I don't really need a lot of money back then. I just needed enough to be able to go to the movies and to get some food and maybe get myself a room at the People's Palace on Pitt Street. So what I'm going to do now, in order to time travel, I'm going to screen share ads for what was on at the movies in Sydney in the 1960s and 1970s. And just show you what I would watch if I was able to time travel, and show you what a wide range of movies there were at the time and how a lot of cinemas had 5, 6, 7, 10-year-old movies showing on the big screen because people couldn't see them otherwise. Screen share. Here we go. Recording has started. So here is the first one from 1964. And I'm going to scroll up to the top corner. Look at that. You can see the Beatles at the Sydney Stadium because it's 1964 and the Beatles did the one tour of Australia in 1964. I probably wouldn't do that because I don't really want to be in a stadium full of hyped up teenage girls. It's not my bag. You probably couldn't hear the band. So instead, I would go to the Plaza. It's the last weeks of The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm at the Plaza in Cinerama because that was the one Cinerama cinema in Sydney at the time. So I would probably watch that. I could probably watch Tom Jones at the Paris, which is only around the corner. The Mayfair had Cleopatra, as you can see. But I'd probably go to the Regent and watch From Russia with Love, because that would be cool. And the Regent was a great old Sydney flea pit, which I would really love to have revisited. I've been there before it closed in the 1980s and got torn down for no good reason. The Regent was a great cinema. And it always showed the James Bond films as they came out, all the way through to the Roger Moore era. Let's see what other options we got. We could see Dirk Bogarde, Samantha Eggar, and James Robinson Justice in Doctor in Distress at the Suburban Cinemas, Ashfield, Campsie, Chatswood, Cronulla, blah, blah, blah. And there's the Regent, by the way, in case you hadn't seen it. That's what the Regent cinema looked like. And it was a great flea pit. You could go see The Longest Day or Of Love and Desire with Merle Oberon and Steve Cochran. This was a year before Steve Cochran's death, which was really, really weird. So you go see that. This was the era of the rom-com. You could go and see Elvis and Anne Margaret in Love in Las Vegas, which was the Australian name for Viva Las Vegas, because they didn't think Australians would understand what Viva meant. You could see Peter Sellers' movie Heavens Above, but there was also Sunday in New York, with Cliff Robertson, Jane Fonda and Rod Taylor. Any Rod Taylor movie, because he was a Sydney boy, got a cinema release in Australia all the way through his film career. But you could also go to the Barclay to see Lawrence of Arabia, or the Forum to see 55 Days of Peking, or the State to see the thrill of it all with Doris Day and James Garner. Or William Holden and Audrey Hepburn at the Prince Edward in Paris when it sizzles. I've got a copy of that on DVD. It's a fun little movie. But my favourite flea pit of all is this one, the El Rancho Drive-In in Fairfield, which was a cowboy-themed drive-in cinema. It's where I first saw From Russia with Love, in fact. And they had Frankenstein meets the Wolfman and House of Dracula, which was really kind of cool. I would see them in a drive-in in a heartbeat. Of course, I'd have to get a car if I'd travel back in time. And it'd have to be a manual because they didn't have automatics in Australia. And that would be a thing as well. What I wouldn't watch is what's next to it. The black and white minstrel show with the blackface in it. Would not do that. But the El Rancho showing Frankenstein meets the Wolfman and House of Dracula would be your go-to on this one. Or you could go down, leaving aside all of these ones, which are live theatre performances. You can see the notorious, at the Skyline Drive-Ins, you can see the Notorious Landlady with Kim Novak, along with Spencer's Mountain with, I think, Henry Fonda, Bye Bye Birdie and Sail a Crooked Ship, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which came out, that was a 1956 movie. So this one was about 8 or 10 years old when it turned up at this cinema. And the print would probably have been totally shit. Spartacus, you go and see Spartacus at Bass Hill. Nurse on Wheels with Juliet Mills and Ronald Lewis, plus Decoy. Or Carrying Bar, you can see The World of Susie Wong. And Shack Out on 101. So that's just the first one. Now I'll bring up one or two more of these because they are fun. There's another view of the Regent, by the way. Fantastic flea pit. Right next to the new Hoyt Centre. This is just before the Regent was destroyed. There's my local cinema. I got one from my local cinema. The Regal in Liverpool, which used to be called the Butterfly, but isn't now. You can see Steve Reeves, Marlene de Mojo, Daniela Rocker in the Giant of Marathon, a Pepler movie. Aldo Ray, Elizabeth Sellers, The Day They Robbed the Bank of England. And then we got The Man in the Net with Alan Ladd and Carolyn Jones. And The Tingler. What was this, 1960? I would go and see that. The Man in the Net and The Tingler in the cinema at my local flea pit, which is the one that made me a film buff. And it's even got the phone number there, UB7608. Wonder what happened if I call that number now. So we got that there. What else have we got? There is a picture of the Regal, my local flea pit, which was even old when I went to see movies there in the 60s and 70s. And has now been torn down and replaced with a hotel. There's a colour picture of the Regal selling Streets ice cream down here. Yeah, that would be from the early 1970s. There's a slightly better picture of it. Not a pretty place because it had been going since the 1930s. So at this stage it would have been 40 years old and hadn't been renovated ever. But let's try to find one of the ads. There's another picture of the Regal. Let's try to find one of the ads. That's actually the State Theatre. That shows you what kind of city theatres there were. And this one still exists as a live stage production venue. The State Theatre in Sydney was an enormously beautiful building and still is. It looks like you could film Errol Flynn swashbuckling movies there. Here we go. What date have we got for this one? We'll go down the bottom there. The date is August 24th, 1967. Let's see what we got. All of this side is the live theatre things. But over this side, we've got Grand Prix in Cinerama with James Garner, Eva Marie Saint, Yves Montand, Toshiro Mifune. You can go and see Hawaii with Julie Andrews, Max von Sydow and Richard Harris at the Paris, or the Batman movie plus Smokey with Fess Parker and Katie Gerardo. So you can go and see that at the Palace. I would go and see that in a heartbeat because I once saw it in a cinema live. And then you can go and see The Family Way with Hul Bennett and Haley Mills and John Mills, or the Sand Pebbles at the Paris with Steve McQueen, Richard Attenborough and Richard Crenna. I've got that and I've got the Batman movie on DVD. But here's the interesting thing. It's the suburban cinemas. And the two I go to look at is the Fairfield cinema there has the Battle of the Bulge. That was one of my locals. And there was a Liverpool one, which had Mary Poppins and Goofy's, is that Goofy's Glides or something? So we're showing Mary Poppins at the time. But I saw Mary Poppins at a different cinema, which was the Metro in King's Cross. So we'll get out of that one and we'll just see if we can find a different time and date. This one was, go down the bottom, August 24th, 1967. South Pacific, which was at that stage, at least 10 years old. Man for All Seasons with Paul Schofield, Robert Shaw, Orson Welles, etc. You can go and see that. Battle of the Bulge or the Bible. I would go Battle of the Bulge because I'm not a Bible kind of guy. Let's see what we've got. Penrith Drive-In had the Ugly Dachshund plus Winnie the Pooh, which was kind of cool. Hey look, John and Charlie's Unique Discotheque, a swinging place for rendezvous in King's Cross, which was the red light district of Sydney at the time. Let's see what else we can find. There is the Ugly Dachshund and Winnie the Pooh. Probably wouldn't see that. There we are. El Rancho Drive-In in Hamilton Road, Fairfield. The place where the El Rancho was is now a Catholic girls' college. Tickle Me with Elvis and Good Neighbor Sam with Jack Lemmon. So we could see that if we wanted to. And this one was one of those saucy Swedish movies, True Love, with Harriet Anderson in it. A little bit naughty, but they would have cut the shit out of it for release in Sydney in 1967. In the drive-ins, you can see Bo's Yes with Guy Stockwell, Agent for Harm with Mark Richmond, Paris When It Sizzles, Girls on the Beach, another with Noreen Corcoran, which would have been probably a Disney joint. The Great Centennial's Train Robbery with Frankie Howard and Reg Varney, Girl in the Headlines, Promise or Anything with Robert Cummings and Leslie Caron, Dingaka with Stanley Baker and Juliet Prowse, which might be interesting, and another one of those sexist comedies from the 1960s, How to Murder Your Wife and Toys in the Attic. So you could go any of those, but we'll try to find something a bit more recent if I can, and I'm sure this is looking great. Sunday Telegraph, December 12th, 1964. Roy Orbison and the Rolling Stones is showing live, which is kind of interesting. This one, here we go, 1969. The Fixer of the Savoy, Sweet Charity at the Ascot. I might go see that. The Magus with Michael Caine and Anthony Quinn, which is a really mad movie. Roman Polanski's Cul-de-sac Up. The Graduates down there. The Professionals and Casino Royale. That might be interesting. Go and see Hair live. But yeah, this one's a bit low res, so I'll see if I can find a more high res image here. There we go. Casino Royale or the Sand Pebbles. I'd go Casino Royale because I watched the Sand Pebbles recently. Man for All Seasons, Grand Prix. Danger Grows Wild. What the hell's that? With Omar Sharif at the State. Perils of Pauline and the Reluctant Astronaut. The Ugly Dachshund. Dr. Zhivago, The Bible, The Family Way. It's all a bit prosaic there. Here we go. What's this one? What date do we have? And it doesn't tell me. But it looks like it was late 1960s. Because the Hoyt Cinemas had Star, one of the great failures of a Robert Wise film with Julie Andrews. West Side Story, which at this stage would have been 8 or 10 years old. Charlie with Cliff Robertson. The Night They Raided Minsky's, Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Bye Bye Braverman, Zorba the Greek. The Thomas Crown Affair, which was notoriously called A Love Affair Between Two Bastards. Or you can go over here to the Rapallo and see Age of Consent, or the State, which was nearby, to see Carry On Up the Khyber. Carry On movie. Let's go here. Here we go. The Dirty Dozen. I would go and see The Dirty Dozen. Probably at the St. James. Slightly better cinema. And down at the El Rancho, they got off Human Bondage with Lawrence Harvey and Kim Novak, an Italian movie with Rod Taylor in it called Seven Seas to Calais. Swashbuckling one, I think, about Francis Drake. Here's another one of those misogynistic movies, A Guide for the Married Man, with Walter Matthau and Robert Morse at the Regent, because they were obviously between James Bond films. The drivings look more interesting. The Last Command with Anthony Quinn. Rampage at Apache Wells with Stuart Granger. The Rare Breed with James Stewart. Love and Kisses with Jack Kelly and Ricky Nelson. It's a mad, 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 mad world. The Naked Prey and the Family Jewels. So you've got The Naked Prey, which is a really rough, gritty Cornell Wilde movie, along with the Jerry Lewis comedy. Who makes these double features? And then Promise or Anything and Dingaka. And what have they got in the suburban ones? Let's have a look here. Liverpool, Southwestern Sonora, and Munsters Go Home. So you get a Western and a Munsters movie there. Is Fairfield here? No, it isn't. Well, here we go. It's one of those ones that has midnight shows. I was looking for one of these. Over on the right. Special midnight shows tonight. Paranoid with Oliver Reed, which is a Hammer film, a Hammer crime film. And Munsters Go Home. Cool. Francis Forrest has Camp on Blood Island, another Hammer movie. And Games, which is a movie that had James Caan and Simone Signoret in it. Thunder in Carolina with Rory Calhoun plus The Vulture, which is a mad kind of science fiction horror movie. Redland 7000 with James Caan, they've spelt Caan with a K there, plus something called Night Monster. Caringbah has a lively set with James Darren, plus Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Why would you have a light rom-com with James Darren and a Frankenstein movie? But Liverpool is the one you want to go and see. House of Dracula plus Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll. So they've got a Universal horror film from the 40s along with a more contemporary Hammer movie there, which is kind of cool. The Star Matraville has Games and Redline 7000. But at midnight at the drive-in in Trelawney, you can see Green Slime and Gorgo. That may be the one to go to, because that would be kind of cool to see in a double feature. And the drive-in at Trelawney was a double drive-in. So if you get shitted with one of the movies, you can go to the concession stand, which was between the two backward-facing cinemas, and watch the other movie. Let's have a look over here. Sydney's best value Sunday shows. The No-Mobile, Disney, and The Daring Game. Planet of the Apes and Fantastic Voyage at Collaroy Classic up on the North Shore. That may be the one to see if you're going to go to a hardtop cinema. Dr. Zhivago and Macbeth and Doctor in Clover. Or Vanessa Redgrave in Isadora. Or at the Astor in Glebe, which became the Valhalla. Love in Las Vegas, which is Viva Las Vegas, and Kissing Cousins. Or next week, here we go around the Mulberry Bush and The Party. So you've got that Barry Evans English comedy, or the Peter Sellers movie The Party. So there were pretty good films there. There we go. You see Bullet at the Liberty. Not a bad one there. Let's see what else we can find. Go see Hair live at in the Metro Theatre in King's Cross. Here you go. What's the El Rancho got on this one? Which is, when would that be? July 28th, 1967. Cat Ballou and the Great Sioux Massacre and Lord Jim. Again, this is a pretty low-res one. Or you can go see Liza Minnelli at Checkers nightclub with her husband of the time, Peter Allen. That would have been interesting. Sunday Theatre Guide. French Film Week. You can see A Man and a Woman. Claude Lelouch's movie, which is kind of cool. Or you can go down to the gala and see The Fox. D.H. Lawrence's The Fox with Sandy Dennis, Kid Julia, and Anne Haywood, where Anne Haywood makes herself happy in a mirror. Valley of the Dolls, plus the pad and how to use it. That might be fun. Here's one I wanted to mention, Helga at the State Theatre Red. Helga was one of those sex hygiene movies, talking about a woman and pregnancy and things like that. And it was very, very popular and showed in cinemas for a long time because it had full frontal female nudity and a live childbirth in the movie. Let's have a look here. At the town, you can see Bedazzled, the original version and the best. Wait Until Dark at the Embassy. It's a mad, 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 mad world at the Palace. The Detective with Frank Sinatra at the Regent, Ice Station Zebra, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang The Graduate, or you can go over here to McKenna's Gold at the Forum, which is a very bad Western. I watched that one last year. The Wrecking Crew, one of the Dean Martin, Matt Helm films. Funny Girl, Romeo and Juliet, the Zeffirelli version. Rosemary's Baby, Oliver, which I hated because they made me go see it when I was at school. Well, look at this. You get 20 cigarettes for 20 cents by going to the wholesale cigarette supplier in Queen Street, Brisbane, which is about 900 kilometres away. Or here's one down here, Campbelltown Drive-In, Von Ryan's Express, and Rasputin the Mad Monk. with Christopher Lee. That would be fun. I would go and see that. Let's have a look at this one, which is, this is, give me a date, yeah, April 3rd, 1964. And this is the last one I've got to do. Ingmar Bergman's Through Glass Darkly and From Tsar to Stalin, which this was a kind of movie. They were documentaries, and most of them were movie stills and short movie clips with a voiceover talking about the perils of communism. They were quite popular. I've noticed a few of them when I've gone through these newspaper clippings, so I wouldn't see that. The Savage Innocence, which is exciting and spectacular, it says here, with Anthony Quinn. Knife in the Water, which of course is a Polanski movie, so I won't see that. The Prize with Paul Newman and Elka Summer, which will be kind of cool. Black Orpheus at the Roma. I would see Black Orpheus in a cinema in a heartbeat. Or Fellini's 8.5 at the Lido, though they would have cut bits out of that as well. Love with a Proper Stranger with Natalie Wood. Or you go down to the wonderful El Rancho again. See Carry On Cruising with Sid James, or In the Underwater City with William Lunigan and Julie Adams, which would have been a 10-year-old movie at that stage. Anything interesting in Liverpool, the VIPs with Rod Taylor and Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. And was there anything at my favourite, the Fairfield Hub? Doris Day, what's it say, first release, Move Over Darling. It's very vague and very off-putting there. So that's what I was going to do this time. The movies I would watch if I was time traveling back to the 1960s in Sydney. I do have some 1970s ones. Let me see if I can find them for you. There's another one with 2001, The Last Picture Show. That would have been in the 70s then. At the gala, they're showing The Last Picture Show. 2001 I wouldn't see because I don't like it. Liverpool, they had Night of Dark Shadows and The Fearless Vampire Killers. What is it with Polanski movies? And somebody called Blushing Charlie and Sabra with Akim Tamarov and Asaf Dayan, which may be an Israeli movie. Weird and wonderful stuff. And you can see that there was just so many movies that, here we go, 1970s. This has got to be 1970s. 72. Last one, I promise. Grady King was showing The Godfather at 2 cinemas. Mary Queen of Scots, Clockwork Orange, The Revengers with William Holden, and Clute. Starting to get interesting. Then they did Percy at the State Theaterette, plus Kama Sutra Rides Again. Kama Sutra Rides Again and Percy. Percy was a comedy with Hul Bennett about the world's first penis transplant. Got a bit saucy in the 70s when the R rating came in. And A Clockwork Orange was shown because of that as well. Play Misty for Me was on at a number of suburban cinemas. Let's have a look down here. Ryan's daughter, The Love Machine and Drive, he said. I've actually got a copy of The Love Machine that I was just starting to watch the other day. And at Liverpool, at the Regal, they had Carnal Knowledge and Love and Other Strangers. Because the Regal, my local cinema, really embraced R-rated movies when they first came out. But I'd probably go to the Lido to see one of my favourite sex comedies of the 70s. Bedroom Berserker and Perfume Garden. I would go and see that and avoid the people with the raincoats. Or you could go see Under Milkwood with Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor and Peter O'Toole, only one of whom is Welsh. I might go see that. Just so many choices here. Music Lovers and Bridget Remagen. A biopic about Tchaikovsky, along with a war film. Or you could go and see Riders on the Rain with Charles Bronson and 9 Ages of Nakedness, which was a nudie film by Harrison Marks, an English one. 150 international topless beauties. You got to love stuff like that. So that's what I got for you this time around. A whole bunch of... one more I got to point out. The Statue, which is this stupid comedy with David Niven and Verna Lisi. And Verna Lisi plays David Niven's wife, who makes this big Michelangelo's David type statue of David Niven nude. But the schlong isn't his schlong. And he worries about who she got to model for the dick in that movie. It's a total kind of horrible movie in so many ways. And I'm tempted to go and find a copy of it and watch it. But anyway, that's what I got for you this time around. What cinema was like back in the day. And I will stop sharing that screen now. Let me just do the right key combination to stop that. Boom. So that's what I got for you this time around. Movies were weird in the past, but this was the environment, particularly 1970 stuff, was the environment in which I first learned about movies and first started watching movies. And I would go into the city and see 3 or 4 movies in a day when I had the money at the time. And so you could kind of walk half a block and have 5 or 6 cinemas, not multiplexes, but individual houses to see movies in. And then, of course, they incorporated them all into multiplexes and you didn't get your steps in. Amazing, the films that were showing and the films that were still showing. And I remember a lot of the times when you got to see the older films in these particular environments, the prints would be really shit. They'd be spliced together where they split. They'd be faded. They'd be scratched. There were some really bad prints circulating in the Australian market at the time. But now that we have digital, things are much better. Nonetheless, I'm really nostalgic about these and I like them. And that was the environment that made me a movie buff. So thank you very much for watching. All the usual things. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of these. Whether I'm scrolling around too fast. This is the first time I've done this, so let me know if I've been scrolling around too fast. You can also support the channel if you like by becoming a channel member on YouTube or by becoming a patron on patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Next up, we have Science Fiction Saturday once more, and I've got some stuff for that that's already been watched. So until then, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some old movies and see where you would go to see them back when they first came out. And I'll catch you next time.